Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. I am so excited that you have tuned in today because I am here with my dear, dear friend, Dr. Elizabeth Cohen. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Wendy. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Me too. I absolutely adore this woman, and everyone will see and learn why very quickly as we are going to talk today about a really exciting upcoming book that Elizabeth has coming out that has to do with seeing the light on the other side of your divorce. So before we dive in, I would love to share a little bit about you with our audience today. So, Dr. Elizabeth Cohen is a clinical psychologist. She is the CEO and founder of the online divorce course and membership, Afterglow, The Light at the Other Side of Divorce, and the CEO of the Center for CBT in New York City. Dr. Cohen's online course teaches women how to heal, grow, and thrive after divorce, no matter how difficult the process has been. She offers a monthly membership program to provide one-on-one coaching, expert support from divorce professionals, and an engaged community of like-minded people. Elizabeth received her PhD in clinical psychology from Boston University and was also the recipient of the prestigious American Psychological Foundation Research Award for her research on the emotional effects of 9/11. She's been featured on the Tamron Hall Show, The Wall Street Journal, NBC News, Women's Health, HuffPost, Thrive Global, Daily Beast, and Good Housekeeping. She's also a weekly contributor to Psychology Daily with her divorce course column, and she hosts the Divorce Doctor podcast where she interviews people about their divorce experiences. Elizabeth, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you are here today. And the first question that I always ask my guests is your story and how it is that you became inspired to do not only the work that you do today, but also what inspired you to write your book, which will soon be out in April, called Light at the Other Side of Divorce, Discovering the New You.
Thank you, Wendy, so much for having me. I love being here. You provide such a beautiful container for your audience. And so I love being able to talk with them. So the reason I wrote this book and the reason this work, I think, is what I was put on this earth to do is because I was on my hands and knees 10 years ago with a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old when I kicked my ex-husband out due to his substance use. And I, being a doer, being a manager of all things, and being a psychologist, Googled divorce recovery. I wish divorce rehab had been there, your work.
Me
Nada,
too.
right? Like nada. There was nothing. I went to this funny, basically 70s-esque retreat that was this really wild experience. It was the only thing I could find. I was really desperate for a plan about how to heal through this process. I knew that there must be. People healed through so many other experiences. There had to be something through divorce, and I couldn't find anything. And by not finding it, not only did it really hurt me because I didn't have the healing, it also sent me a message. I think it sent me a message that you're not really supposed to heal through divorce. Like, it sucks, it's over, it's bad. Good luck to you. And that really pisses me off because I think that is complete crap. And so I'm fortunate enough and privileged to have this training. So I was able to piece together 1 foot forward, 2 steps back, a program to heal. But I didn't want anyone to ever have to suffer and put it together the way I did. So I created the program, and I wrote the book because of that as well.
Yeah. And I have to tell, our stories are so incredibly similar, right? As everybody who's listening knows my story. And so many of us create our next best life from the learnings and the experiences that we go through. And I think it is so valuable how transparent you are in your story, because you not only are trained and educated, in the field of psychology, but you walk the walk, you talk the talk.
Yeah.
And when we're transparent with our audiences and sharing that information, I think it helps them to not feel so alone and to just be okay with it's hard work, and moving forward takes effort and it's challenging. So how did you even start the process of what was that one step forward?
Yeah. Well, I want to first say I had so much shame. Here I am, a
Sure.
professional where I'm spending all day, every day helping other people with their problems. And I can't get in my mind like my shit together. I was very codependent. So I can't like fix my ex-husband. I can't make him better. What is wrong with me? So I had so much shame that I had to heal, actually. That was a big piece of it. And once I was able to, what happened for me really where I decided the course of my healing was when I was in the playground with a bunch of parents and I was telling another war story about what my ex-husband did. And trust me, there were plenty. And they were listening as if like they weren't, but they could have been like eating popcorn. They were so enthralled in the story. And after I told the story, I stopped and thought, okay, they were so entertained, but ouch, that was me talking about something I went through that was really painful. And am I going to spend the rest of my life telling these stories? Or am I going to stop and figure out how the hell did I become a character in this story? What is my role here? And in that instance, I thought, that's it. I'm not taking his inventory anymore. I'm not telling his stories. I'm figuring out how did I get here? And even that, so I wonder, I'm sure, Wendy, you can relate to this in your story. Like that moment when the focus went off of him and went on to me was even though it was about to get really dirty and I was going to have to look at a lot of disgusting shit inside, I felt like I had some control over something. So I felt so much better. I was ready to roll, even if it was going to be hard.
Yeah, and I want to highlight what you just said because I think it is so incredibly important for everybody who just listened and who's listening right now is that it is so crucial to start paying attention to the stories that you are telling yourself because 99% of you, the star of your story is your ex. And it's when you finally start telling the story from the I am versus the pointing finger, victim, etc., is when that to me is the biggest step that has to happen first. Because until you recognize the inner dialogue that's happening, exactly what you said, you started realizing that you were like the star of the story, but yet you were tired of being the star of the story. But the vantage point that you were telling the story from was victim. He
Yes.
did, he this, he,
Yes.
instead of, wait a second, I am hurt. I am upset. I was actually, I chose to look the other way. So it's really those stories derail our progress instead of propelling us into, it's almost like the stories keep us in our past and derail our progress forward. So until we're able to flip the script and start shining the light back on us and going, wait a second, I'm creating my own self-doubt. So pay attention to how I'm talking to myself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to explain to people that this takes time. I went
Yes.
to a psychiatrist at one point and I'll never forget this. I was sitting in his office and he said, "Why are you here?" And I started telling my story or the story, it turned out. And he, I think very unkindly, but he said, "Stop," like really loud, and just said, "Do not mention his name again." And I had nothing to say. I had no story that was just mine. And so if you're hearing us say, focus on yourself, think about what it takes time. And I talk about this in my book. I didn't know what color I wanted to paint the walls. Like I didn't know who I was, but I was made a decision to focus on that rather than him.
Yeah. And I think that's incredibly important as well, is that so many of us, you and I both included, lost ourselves in our marriage. And it's interesting because you say you didn't know what color to paint your walls. I didn't even know what food I liked to eat for dinner. Like I was always in service of what he wanted or what the boys wanted to eat.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it's so hard when all of a sudden the mirror that has been reflecting back at you who you are is suddenly gone. It's a shock to the system. And it takes compassion, it takes mindfulness to just breathe into those moments and just take them one step at a time. It's a muscle that gets to be created
Exactly.
from nothing.
Exactly. And I have a chapter in my book actually where I have people, the book has stories and vignettes and narratives from my experience and from all the clients I've seen. And then it also has journal prompts and exercises. And one of them is to design your ideal day and to really imagine your perfect day, even if it's unrealistic right now. And I remember the first time I did that, I was blank. I really didn't know what I would like, but I went back to it over and over time. I was able to design it and I could live by design, not by default. So it's amazing. People say put the focus on yourself. And I just really want to point out that it doesn't happen overnight. It really does take time. And as you said so beautifully, you have to build that muscle. And P.S. I wrote the book, like I'm still doing it. Like
Yes.
I'm every
Well, and
day.
I think that's like a misnomer. People think, oh, you're healed, you're done. Why does anything come up again? And it's not that we're numb or immune to feelings as it relates to our fixes, but if we have the tools, we know how to use the muscle. So we shift really quickly out of it. So until you practice using the muscle and you have the proper equipment, that's why people just stay stuck for so long. But I even had something come up this weekend for me where I had 2 really rough days. And it was interesting because some people in my life were questioning, like, why are you still like, why does this even bother you? And given what you do, why is this still bothering you? And I always say, well, because I'm a human being and I have feelings and I actually know what to do to get through it that much more quickly. So I'm going to keep crying because I know that's how I
Right.
get through this.
And even the fact that you are crying right now, Wendy, I'm going to assume that's a sign of health for you. I think we live in a world where people think that negative emotions, sadness, anger, fear, jealousy, that we don't want to have those. We just want to have the positive ones like happiness, joy, excitement. I'm here to tell you that your brain does not understand the difference between those. They're all excitations in your neurons. So if you want to have joy, excitement, and happiness, you're going to have to get ready to have sadness, fear, and shame and jealousy. And the fact that you could say to everyone, like, I had a really hard couple days and I allowed those feelings and I cried, to me, that's the success. It's not the why are you still upset? Don't you know better?
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really interesting point and something I wanted to actually talk to you about. I think now's a good time is that we get so afraid of being in judgment by other people, or we get afraid of, I don't know, guilt comes over you and fear. I always say fear is not real. Fear is based on limiting belief stories. But so much fear comes up in us because I feel like we've also been put on autopilot by this society to really be people pleasers. Many of us were. Lord knows I was in my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some ways that people can shift out of fear and into positivity?
So I think it starts with accepting feelings as feelings aren't facts, that feelings come and feelings go. In the book, the beautiful poem called The Guest House, where they talk about feelings coming in and welcoming them like a guest. And I usually recommend for clients to actually sit at the table, take some paper plates, and write down all the feelings that they've experienced, and then actually welcome them all to the table. And what is it like to have fear sitting next to you? What is it like to have judgment or jealousy on the other side? And can your nervous system tolerate that for just one more moment? I do a lot of work with fear as a cognitive behavioral therapist, and the key is not to push it away. Fear and anxiety is adaptive. If we didn't have it, I live in New York City, I would be run over by cars because I wouldn't look when I'm walking across the street, right? Like you need some anxiety and some fear. The problem is when it becomes really interfering. So the question is, can you tolerate this fear, this discomfort for 4 more minutes? Can you allow it to move through you for 4 more minutes? And we can do, as you mentioned about limiting beliefs, once we get more comfortable with it, we can start asking, Where is this coming from? Or what is this teaching me? Fear often is a survival mechanism. So whatever we're afraid of, it was right at one point to be afraid of that. If you have trouble speaking up or you're a people pleaser, like I have to say I still am a recovering people pleaser, that's because for me to stay safe growing up, I had to please everybody. So I really want people to know that it's not like we want to get rid of fear. We want to welcome it. And it's the work you do. We want to understand it. And I find that people really relax in my office when I say that worked for you at one point. It's good that you have that mechanism. Let's just try to understand it better.
Yeah, and I love how you express that, because it's really about, and I love the guest house and inviting them to dinner. It's pull up a chair and get curious about the fear. Sit with it, and not from a place that's meant to make you more uncomfortable. It's really meant to, what I heard you say is just to get more curious about what is really underneath it. What is it about the fear that you know is truthful, and where did you first learn that
Yeah.
this was a safe emotion to attach to this circumstance, right?
Yeah, definitely. And one of my favorite somatic experiencing techniques, which is a trauma treatment that I'm trained in, is really asking people to think about what was then and what's now. Whenever I feel paralyzed with fear that someone is angry with me, which just happened this weekend, I felt my feet on the floor and I said to myself what I always say, which is, I am safe. My life is not in danger. When I was younger, if somebody was angry at me, and specifically a parent, my life was in danger. Maybe they wouldn't feed me. Maybe they wouldn't give me attention. Like that, actually, that was then. But now I can feed myself. I have a home. And so I really want to encourage people, especially when you think about divorce, that was then in the marriage. Now I don't have that. Yeah. Yes, he might be texting me and he might be acting the same way he did when we were living together, but we don't live together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. To really, when you feel fear, to separate out then and now.
Yeah, and it's an interesting dichotomy too, because when, to your point, I was actually doing some theta healing earlier today with a client of mine where we were talking about her fear of sadness, and that she was afraid that if she let herself sink into more sadness, which she knew it was something that she was fighting, she had all these fears of loss of control, loss of identity associated with this. And, what I'm also hearing you say is you get to feel, you get to have this emotion, but you get to detach it from the ways in which you grew up believing that something negative was going to happen as a result of that emotion.
Exactly.
And I think that is a major eye opener. It was a major eye opener for me once I figured that out. And it is such an eye opener in helping others to start shifting their mindset,
Yeah.
and make more positive shifts in their life.
Yeah. And in the book, I have an exercise also about really thinking, I love to focus on the past. As of course, I'm a therapist. I'm Jose, I'm a shrink. I love that. So I focus on the past, the limiting beliefs, where is it coming from? But I also have a chapter where we talk about your ability to heal and really actually imagining your optimal future self. And I think it's really important to kind of get all of time, like the quantum time, like now, past, and present, really in your consciousness in order to fully heal.
Yeah. And I would imagine that also contributes to what you call the light. So how would you define the light on the other side of divorce?
So I often think about when I was in therapy during this time, I just would just sit there sometimes and say, when is this going to be over? When is this going to be over? Haven't I learned enough? Haven't I learned enough? And my very kind therapist would say, the only way through is through, is through. And when she would say that, I would imagine a tunnel and I could see, just like when you're driving through a tunnel, you can see the light, but you don't know how far away it is. Or it can, even in your physiologically, if you can't see it, you can anticipate the light. And in every way, there is no light without dark. And so I think the light is the example for me, is having moved through something so deeply painful that it changes you when you hit the light. So the light I wanted, it's funny, when I sat there with her and asked when this was going to be over, at that point, if it had been over, it would have been, look, what I wanted was very different than when I actually showed up. And I tell this story so often that all I wanted was for my ex to apologize for me, for just like leaving me with the kids, not doing anything, like me doing everything forever and ever. I just wanted that. And I think I mentioned it in therapy and my work, and I started working on releasing that, like not waiting for it. And as always happens, about 3 weeks after I'd fucking worked on it, is okay if I swear?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. After I'd freaking worked on it, totally nonchalantly, he and I were standing there, and he had just had a baby, and he said, I don't know how you did this. I don't know how you did it. It is remarkable that you did it. And I was not there at all. Thank you for doing everything you've done. And I thought, damn it, I didn't even need it anymore. Like that was literally how I felt. Like it was because I had been clinging to this idea, if he just says this, then I will feel better. And I actually needed to release the need for that. And then it came, and it landed in a better place. So it's this idea of what I thought the light was back then is not even the light that I could imagine now.
No, and what I'm hearing you say essentially is I think we all search for an external source of the light when it resides within us.
Well said. I hadn't even made that connection, but you're exactly right. Exactly. So smart.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's, and I think that's part of why everybody gets so stuck, is because we're constantly looking outside for somebody else to brighten the light.
Yes.
And what people don't understand is that the light comes from within. It is an internal switch. And same thing. I mean, let's be real. I'm still waiting for a lot of things to be said to me. But at the same time, I don't like, it doesn't derail my life in any way, because it's like, if it happens, it's like the second cherry on top, but I already have one. So I don't need the second one, but I wouldn't turn down the second one.
Exactly. And I think in some ways you're making a really good point also, that looking for that external light or that external validation in some ways is the same shit we did in our marriages.
Oh God,
it's just a continuation of that. So if we're really going to change, this is the hard work. And I want to say this is hard work. Writing the book and rewriting about my experiences brought me to tears many times. This is painful, hard work that really creates the most divine life I've ever had. So it's like you can't have one without the other. But I didn't also, by the way, I'll take responsibility for this. I didn't do any hard work in my marriage. Like I didn't look at myself. I looked only at him. I blamed him. I married someone who was less functioning than me so I could feel better about myself. Like I didn't do any of the hard work. And I had to start doing that hard work. And that's where the joy came from.
Yeah, joy, which is found internal. Happiness comes from external. It's the whole thing. And
exactly. It's not external. It's so funny, Wendy, because someone said to me the other day, so I'm happily remarried to an amazing person, but I don't purposely not talk about it, but I don't talk about it as that's the sign that I healed. I never talk about it because that's just an external thing. Like I even think the reason that I heal, that one of the signs of me healing is I know that even if something happened with my husband, I would be fine. That is my healing. That I am okay with me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where it starts, is we all get to fall back in love, to fall into forgiveness, to fall into acceptance with ourselves. It starts here, because once this is solid, the external, it's an add-on. It's not a substitution for, or nor are you dependent upon that to be this. And man, did that take some hard freaking work to
exactly. Hands and knees. Yeah. Hands and knees, lots of tears, but so worth it.
So worth it. And I would love for you to share, as we're wrapping up our conversation, share some more wisdom, because I know your book is coming out in April and there's going to be so many amazing nuggets in there. What is something that you can arm the audience with today as they're continuing on a walk or listening to me in their car right now? What is something, that a little tidbit of learning that you can provide to them to just shine that light brighter within themselves?
The women in my online program, I call them super women. And so I want you all to know, men and women, that you are superhuman for going through a divorce. You are the bravest person for either saying something isn't working for you or agreeing and going along when someone says that your relationship isn't working for them. And so you don't ever let anyone think you are weak. You are brave with tears in your eyes and spit up all over your shirt and not having showered. You are incredibly brave. And don't ever forget the incredible potential you have to soar. I know it. Wendy knows it. It's inside of you. We wouldn't be doing this work and we wouldn't have helped all these people if we didn't believe it. And so you are amazing.
Yes, you are. And everybody should be saying out loud, yes, I am. I am amazing, because it's, again, getting back rooted into the I statements instead of the you or the he or the she. So
Exactly.
very powerful. And Elizabeth, I know you have some amazing gifts that you are offering to everybody tuning in. So
Yep.
I would love for you to share a little bit more about that.
Yes, sure. So my book, if you pre-order it now, you will be enrolled in 3 free workshops with me that are exclusive only for people who've pre-ordered. I've never taught these to other people. They have special tips in it that are not even included in the book. The first is about living in the afterglow, how to just be your perfect self you can post-divorce, on how to enter the dating scene again. I have some incredible tips on that, and how to really manage co-parenting in a way that feels manageable to you and that feels literally co versus against. So if you pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, other places where you buy your books, you'll be automatically enrolled in that if you go to my website, drelizabethcohen.com/book, but it's doctor is DR. And then on my website, I have some really fun freebies for you, ranging from affirmations to help you heal, in a template for you to talk to your ex to get exactly what you want, how to have the best sex post-divorce, and how to talk to friends about your divorce. So there's so many tools there that are all free that I want your audience to be able to have so they can start. If you notice, all of these are focused on you. They're not focused on the other person.
Amazing. So generous. Thank you so much for being my guest today and for sharing so much of you and your wisdom with everybody tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
I'm so grateful for you and the work you do. Thank you, Wendy.
Oh, thanks, darling. And everybody tuning in, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found multiple nuggets of information to help you navigate wherever it is that you are in your divorce process. Most importantly, just know that you're not alone in where it is that you are. And as always, please share any insights, any comments, any learnings that you received from the episode today. I always love hearing from you guys. Email me at wendy@wendysterling.net, and sending you all tons of love, light, and joy. I hope you guys have a magical and beautiful rest of your day. Mwah. Bye, everybody.